Welcome to Executive Insights. I'm Nasheen Liu, partner with the IT Media Group, a CIO-centric media company. My guest today is Nat Korol, co-founder of Hyphen, a B2B marketing agency with purpose and impact. In this episode, we discuss Nat's journey from the corporate world to entrepreneurship, some bold decisions she and her co-founders made to instill a culture of transparency and empowerment. Nat shares her view on how B2B marketing is trending and offers words of wisdom to the next gen of leaders. Hi, Nat. So great to see you. Welcome to Executive Insights.
Thanks, Nasheen. Super glad to be here. Morning.
Morning. So, Nat, you and I met, I think, just over a year ago at a conference. And I remember you and I spoke on the same panel. And the day of the event, I walked into the room thinking I was early, but the room was already packed. So I was looking around for a seat. And then I saw you. You stood up and you waved me over and told me that you saved me a seat.
Yeah.
And I was immediately impressed because you were just so welcoming. And prior to that, we only met once on Zoom in preparation for the session. You saved me a seat, you welcomed me over, and then we pretty much hung out the entire day. And I just really felt that instant connection. And I really was impressed with not just how welcoming you were, but your mannerism. And I'm a believer in the fact that the way we carry ourselves, we treat others, and how we move through life really is a reflection of our upbringing and the lessons we learned along the way. So why don't we start there? Love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned growing up, and how would that have informed your career decisions?
What a loaded question, Nasheen. And thank you so much for the reminder of how we met in person, which I think is always incredibly powerful. And, you know, we tend to do things that we don't remember that make a huge impact on somebody else, like the example that you just brought up. And from my experience, that moment, I just loved our Zoom call because it was one of the most easygoing conversations I've ever had on a video chat. So I think we just had that bonding moment right away. But also you were the greatest moderator of a panel that I've ever been part of. So kudos to you. And I think that was probably one of my most exciting moments to be on a panel. I would say for me, it's been really threefold. Early on, I think it's really important, and something that my parents have instilled in me is that natural curiosity about yourself, about those around you, about the environment around you as well. And the only way I know how to feed that curiosity is to ask for and listen to advice from folks around you. And I think the key there is definitely listening, and then taking that advice and making it your own, right? We're all human beings that are trying to learn ourselves as much as possible through the lifetime. And we also change as we grow up, as our environments change, as our lives kind of progress. So being incredibly self-aware and really making your own decisions from the advice that you receive from others, I think is very important. And the way I've learned to do that is to listen to that advice and then really put my mind, my heart, and my gut into that decision making. And I'd say lastly, which speaks to the point of how you and I met, but building your community. A lot of people call it network, all that sort of stuff. I really focus on building community and building really important and strong and meaningful relationships and friendships with people, not only in my kind of immediate circle, but outside of it as well. And I think thriving on bringing different viewpoints and people and experiences under one roof can be incredibly rewarding, and has contributed greatly to my own personal development as a leader, as a human being, and always helps me to have a good time at the end of the day, too.
Those are such valuable lessons to be curious, the ability to listen and act on the advice, and also to know the importance of building relationships and forming community. And that truly is beneficial for our entire career journey and how we move through in life and in business. So, speaking of your own career and professional development, you made a pretty big pivot from corporate world to entrepreneurship. I'm wondering what motivated to become an entrepreneur, and how did Hyphen, your company, come to be?
Oh, I wish I could tell you like there were some really bold decisions that were made or anything like that. But my story has been incredibly organic, and I would have to say almost anticlimactic for a lot of people. A lot of it has been ignorance is bliss, and sometimes that extra kick of like youthful confidence really helped to get me to where I am today. But I started in corporate Canada. I loved working in finance. That was my dream when I was in high school and then university. And then from there, things just took a turn. I decided I wanted to try a different industry. I wanted to go into marketing. A contract position was presented to me, so I took a contract position. And the biggest difference between being an employee versus being a contractor is that, you know, you're presented with an agreement and then you have to figure out your own taxes at the end of the year. And a contract has a start and an end date, and you have to deliver on whatever responsibility that they assign to you. And then I went back to having a full-time job. And then from there, I kind of evolved into recognizing that I actually very much enjoyed being a contractor, but I also wanted to push myself and start to incorporate myself, start my own company. And then that way I presented clients with an agreement and a statement of work and a scope of work. And those sorts of things and terms and conditions. So it's just been like natural evolution from an employee to contractor to an employee again to then being incorporated. And the way Hyphen came to be, so Hyphen is actually owned by me and my business partner, Richard Lee. And we met through our extracurricular activities by being part on a board for an organization called Breakfast of Champions in support of sick kids. It was a young professionals community that really believed in the Sick Kids Foundation, still do. We're just not young professionals anymore, unfortunately.
Oh, come on.
Well, not as young as we used to be, I guess. We met through this wonderful organizations. We've made a lot of great friends as a result of that foundation. So when I started my business back in 2014, or when I incorporated, I went to Richard for advice on all these kind of bits and pieces, because he's had his own businesses since the early 2000s. And he became my go-to. And we kind of, through the year of me having my own business and he had his business at the time, recognized the value that we each brought to one another, and decided to start Hyphen together by conglomerate, or by really merging our two firms together and recognizing that there's complementary, not only service offerings that we had, but we also recognized in each other that this would be a good partnership from the perspective of the things that he likes to do, I dislike to do, and vice versa. So we're like, we could really divide and conquer and build something greater than what we are, as a result of this partnership. And it's been fantastic ride over the last 8 years.
Couple takeaways from what you just said there. So first of all, oftentimes we wait for those huge life-changing moments. to do the giant pivots. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes, circumstances just come at us that forced us to make those bold move and decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But for most people, we kind of move through life and we may like what we do. We may be frustrated with what we do. We keep thinking one day we'll make a change. But oftentimes it's not about those giant pivots. It's about small steps that move us forward and eventually lead us onto a path that is our true calling. And I think what you shared there is so true and will be resonating for most people. And number two is never discount a connection and the power of connection and relationships that will be valuable and helpful to us along the way, even if in the beginning, when we first met that person or made that connection, we aren't necessarily thinking, oh, one day that person will be useful to me. However, if your intention is genuine, you're truly nurturing that connection and relationship, and you never know what pans out. And those are such true aspects that in our life and in our career that we should never discount. So to
Yeah.
your point, not only have you met your partner, business partner, Richard, and started a successful business, but now it's been 8 years. And the better part of that 8 years is also through the pandemic, which isn't easy for most
Mm-hmm.
people and most businesses. And you weren't just running a virtual sort of a business over a virtual setting from the start. You, in fact, have a physical office in downtown Toronto, and
Mm-hmm.
you have a team of people. And over time, you've managed to lead a successful business and build a team of meaning and purpose, which is not easy to do. I talk with many leaders across the industries, whether it be in big or corporations or small organizations, and most leaders seem to want to do the right things. Most leaders talk about wanting to build a culture of purpose and meaning, but very rarely do I get the real strategies and success stories of how they are doing that. And in our conversation, I was in fact quite impressed by what you've been doing in leading Hyphen. In fact, you made some very uh, intentional and bold decisions to
Mm-hmm.
create that sense of honesty and transparency within your organization. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, you just make me blush, Nasheen. I just wanted to touch on a little bit on the point that you made in terms of the takeaways and the value or the recognition of the fact that as we move through life, it's the small steps and the small decisions that we make that make such a big impact. Yet at the same time, I've always, I guess, downplayed those small steps, even in my own career progression or personal life progression, because I hear stories like your story, Nasheen, and leaving home and going to Germany and then moving to Canada all by yourself and starting a family. And to me, those are the stories that I'm like, wow, like that is bold, like that takes guts. And it's stories like that that really inspire me to think outside the box sometimes, but still remember, I think the importance and the value there is you have to have not necessarily a vision of what your life should look like, but you have to have like that drive of what success means to you, because it isn't money 99.9% of the time, right? It's a certain life that you want to accomplish and lead for yourself and inspire or motivate others as well. And I've always been a firm believer that it's like your actions speak louder than words. And those are the things that motivate and inspire others. So again, when the first question that you posed on, like, what are the valuable lessons that you've learned? Listening to other people's stories is the best way that you could learn how to progress and learn, like, what is my purpose? in life and my career. And to your question, in terms of the quote unquote bold moves for Hyphen, I would say our moves have been more so based on the fact that we've always been a values first company. Same as like the way Richard and I met through the Sick Kids Foundation. We knew that we wanted to build something bigger and better than ourselves. We've had experience with good companies, with bad companies. And I think the easy thing of when you start your own organization or your own team is that you have capabilities to actually do it right from your point of view, whatever you think that right thing is, versus when you work for an organization and you have to inherit other people's value systems and things like that, which can be difficult. So I think from our perspective, that's been easier. And some of the things that have been very important for us with respect to growing our organization in the right ways, have been things like, or the decisions that we've made as a result of our values have been things like donating 1% of our sales, not our profits, to socio-environmental nonprofits on an annual basis through our 1% for the Planet membership. We've also, as a result of COVID or during COVID, when everyone was kind of disconnected and had that sense of like, I have no idea what's happening next, we really hunkered down and decided that honesty and transparency was the most important thing for us. And we started disclosing our financials to our team on a quarterly basis and reassuring them that it's like, everything's going to be okay. We can handle this together. We're collaborating. We're doing so well. This is one part of your life that we wanted to bring comfort and confidence to our team from that perspective, and sharing our financial information in an incredibly transparent ways and having our team ask questions has helped us get to the next level, actually, because the team has seen, hey, I am trusted. So I'm going to take that trust and I want to make this organization better. The other thing that we're doing is we're actually holding ourselves to a higher standard as a profit-focused organization by trying to get certified for a B Corp certification. When you're a B Corp, you're a business that does more than just earn a profit. You're thinking about, is my team fairly compensated, and everybody on your team fairly compensated? Am I doing business with the right organizations that aren't mistreating their employees, that aren't mistreating the environment and things like that? So we're hoping to get our B Corp in about a month. We applied at the beginning of this year, so that's super exciting. And then from our clients' perspective, we try to make everything as kind of easy as possible for them, including our terms and conditions are incredibly flexible, or a cancellation policy and things like that, that shows them that, we are here to collaborate with you. And if at any point you don't feel like we're doing the right things on your behalf, you could tell us. And it's our responsibility to do the best work that we absolutely can for you. And also things like, we know in our industry, things like transparent invoicing is a big deal. So we try to take our relationships to the next level by not only saying we do these things, but actually doing them. So again, actions speak louder than words.
And you're certainly practicing what you're preaching. I really appreciate your sharing all those insights. And in particular, just go back to being transparent with your employees and your entire team about your financials. And that takes guts to do, especially for a smaller organization. And I believe that oftentimes in the company, when we're creating these different levels, and people see access to information as a privilege that comes with certain title and certain pay grade. And in actuality, that is not empowering to the majority of the people who are actually doing the work. So if you look at many of the successful organizations, I believe, I think I heard a talk by the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang. And as a CEO for a mega billion-dollar company and really the darling of the Silicon Valley these days, he has over 50 senior executives report directly to him rather than creating these levels. And usually CEOs don't have that many direct reports. And one of the things he said was exactly that, is he doesn't want to give people that feeling of privilege just because they get to access certain information that other people don't. So I think that in its own is incredibly empowering, but like I said, it takes guts to do. So kudos to you for doing all those wonderful things in running your business. Now, I wanted to pivot a little bit because you are a marketing expert and have been in the field for a number of years. And in fact, that is one area that you and I kind of connected with my background in technology and technology marketing as well. So wanted to get your perspective about where marketing is going, like some of your key observations about how the trend is evolving, in particular in B2B marketing.
Yeah, so my love is when it comes to the marketing industry is definitely in the business to business space, just because I do feel that there's so much opportunity and it does not get the credit that it deserves, even in 2024. Everyone thinks, the CPGs and the B2C, so business to consumer marketing is where it's at and where all the excitement is. But in reality, and at the end of the day, whether doesn't matter which kind of stream you choose or practice in, it really is about figuring out how to build relationships with your customers or your consumers and how to potentially influence some of their decision making. And the reason why I'm super passionate about B2B and where I see the changes happening is because more and more research is being done on the side of purchase and decision making from the business to business perspective. And it's so complicated in this day and age, but at the heart of it, we're still kind of recognizing that B2B can and is a creative powerhouse. It isn't a cost center the way a lot of organizations are treating it or have been treating it over the years, that it definitely adds value and generates value for the organization beyond kind of lead generation and demand generation. And the trend that I'm seeing more and more these days and the conversations is around the value of the brand and brand perception and within kind of the market space, and that those organizations that continuously see the power and the value and the impact that their good name of their organization has in their specific industry. And as it starts crossing over into kind of more the general public, that can help your business grow tenfold, because what you're doing is you're not just investing in like, how do we get more leads and how do we, help a client click on this button so we have their email address. It is really about how do we build those meaningful connections and relationships with our customers or our clients in the professional industries or professional services space, especially. And, how do we recognize that, again, marketing is a value generating department that should work very closely together with your sales department as well as with your customer service department. And in my opinion, give it another 5 to 10 years, and the organizations that are thriving are the ones that really know how to put or work those three segmented departments together, and they work together under one roof with the same goal in mind. And the sales stops getting all the kind of glitz and glamour and the glory that they're currently getting.
That's a really great point. And I think I completely agree with you. Oftentimes, when we look at B2B marketing, the focus seems to be on leads and demand generation. But in this day and age, when there are really the multiple digital channels and social media, and the younger generation in the workforce and still entering the workforce, the behaviors are changing. If you don't have a powerful brand, if you don't keep nurturing that brand equity, then in the end, it's really a short game, not a long game, because our younger generation, the buying behaviors are not the same, and they don't answer phone calls. Many of them don't even have a home phone. So it's basically following the influencers and making sure there's compelling content that resonates with them, and there's their peers that are making the references and the recommendations. So it's really important to understand how to leverage not just the omni channels, but to have a powerful content and brand strategy to really help you lead into the future. And then I also wanted to touch upon the point that you brought at the beginning about having relationships, because yes, marketing strategies are changing, channels are changing, from the days of doing just face-to-face events to using digital media, and now to have AI powered content strategy for engagement. That's all changing and evolving, which is all great. But fundamentally, it still comes down to the relationship piece, as you mentioned. Relationship with your external potential buyer space, with your followers, and how do you engage with them, and relationship internally with your stakeholders, so that you're not constantly spending energy doing these infighting of who contributed to this particular opportunity. So it all comes down to relationship, like you said.
It truly does. And the way I always position it is, you have to be constantly thinking, whether you're marketing, whether you're sales, whether you're customer service, you constantly have to be thinking about your customer first and their needs. You have to be customer centric in order for you to win market share, in order for you to differentiate yourself. And it's fascinating how many organizations say or think that they do it, but as soon as those quarterly reports are coming in or that sort of stuff, people just kind of forget about their customer and start thinking about, well, this is what I need. And I think that's where marketing comes in, and has had such a bad rep over the years, where people kind of say, well, you manipulate our purchasing decisions. And yeah, that has been the case. Absolutely. But in this day and age, that's changing. And I look at marketing as that important kind of focus, where you can help your sales and your client services always come down to, but we're running a customer centric strategy. So we have to think about the customers, and potentially in this day and age, they're just not making purchasing decisions, or they're not making them in these ways. So we need to pivot, not they need to pivot.
Absolutely. And just to wrap up this conversation, I know we could just keep talking for
days.
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really love to pick your brain. Give us some wisdom in terms of advice to younger generation. Since this is the next gen leaders edition,
Yeah.
and you're a exceptional leader in the millennial generation, but now Gen Zs are coming up and aspiring to be the next gen of leaders. So if you were to offer some words of wisdom to the next gen, and especially young women coming to the workforce, what would they be?
Everyone just has their own way of doing things, which I admire about, whatever generation you're in. So hone in on that, especially in my 20s. One thing that really helped me, and again, this is my own thing, so take from it what you will, but saying yes when to opportunities, or when people ask me to join a softball team or do a yoga class, or things that I didn't think I would have an interest in, but like saying yes to experiences and adventures has probably been one of the easiest and most fun ways that I've learned how to be in leadership positions and how to learn about, or like I've learned about myself so much. And I've also learned about others so much in, non-boxed in ways. So just say yes to opportunities, because your 20s are that kind of time frame to do that, to just absorb, to have fun, to enjoy, and only start building what everyone talks about in terms of boundaries kind of later on in life as you have experienced the world. So if you're doing that, great, continue and have fun while doing it too.
Great advice, saying yes to opportunities. So very true. Well, Nat, this has been such a delightful conversation, and thank you so much for joining the program.
Thanks, Nasheen. It's been such a pleasure.
You've been watching another episode of Executive Insights, the Next Generation of Leaders edition. I'm Nasheen Liu from the IT Media Group. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please check out other content on our YouTube channel, including CIO Roundtable conversations, Executive Insights interviews, and Leadership in Tech summits. And don't forget to subscribe.